Hi, I'm Eric Spenceley with Spenceley Design Co. So if you've been following us recently, we just made this solid walnut coffee table, and today I wanted to show you guys how we attached our tabletop to the base. Now the reason that we need a special fastener is because with a solid wood top like this, the seasonal changes are going to cause this to expand and contract. Therefore, if we screwed this directly into the base, we'd have a lot of issues over time, most likely cupping and cracking of the tabletop, which we definitely want to avoid. So the way that I'm going to show you today is with this, a button. Let's check it out. Now making these buttons is pretty easy. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over to our table saw and we're going to cross cut some of this hardwood here down to some smaller strips. Now the whole reason that we're going to cross cut these first is because we actually want the grain to follow this pattern here. If we were instead to cut these buttons with the grain going the opposite direction, you can see how weak they are with some pliers. They immediately split off. Now if you compare that to a button that has the grain going with the button, you can see that it's almost impossible to break off. Now if you want to check out the original video that Sean Boyd made, I'm going to put a link right up here and you can check that out. The first cut that we made on the table saw establishes the total length of the button. Now the dimensions aren't really important, but to give you an idea, we made these about 2 to 3 inches long. And we used a stop block clamped to our crosscut sled to establish a consistent size and used a silicone brush to hold the piece down to keep our finger away from the blade. We raised the table saw blade until we found out how deep we wanted the tongue of the button to stick out, and then cut the piece standing upright to establish the tongue. Now make sure that you use push sticks here so your fingers are nowhere close to the blade. With the initial tongue cut, we could flip the piece 90 degrees and position the blade to remove the excess wood. Be cautious though on this step. When the excess wood releases, the table saw will shoot it back at you. Just stand out of the way and set up a target or something fun behind you. Now with that step, the button is almost finished. We now need to bring this piece back to the crosscut sled and cut it down into the individual size. We set up another stop block on our sled at about 1.5 inches and cut all the pieces down to final size. Again, we used a silicone brush to hold the pieces so we could keep our fingers safely away from the blade. After all the individual buttons were cut out, we drilled pilot holes for the screws and then came back with a larger drill bit to countersink the screw heads. And with that, the buttons were finished. But here's how you use them to attach the table base to the tabletop. First, put a slot cutting bit into your router and adjust the depth so that it's just slightly deeper than the bottom of the tongue of the button. Now if your table base aprons are thin like ours are here, you'll notice that the router doesn't have a very large surface to balance on. To help out, we clamped a few scrap pieces to the outside so the router had a larger surface to rest on. You can then route some slots into the table base that are about 3 to 4 inches long. It really doesn't matter the size as long as the button has plenty of room to move. If you're enjoying this small project tip, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss one of our future videos. After routing out the rest of the slots, we are ready to attach the buttons to the table. We first pre-drilled a pilot hole, then came back with a screw. Just make sure that your drill bit or screw don't actually go through your tabletop though.
So that's it, that's how you make buttons.